This is what I don't quite understand, how it's an ideology.
Well, it's a suite of beliefs, right? There's systemic racism. Racism is baked into the system. Privilege seeks to preserve itself. All of those things
War in Ukraine.
cohere. Okay, well, you've mentioned that a few times. I'm trying not to go down that rabbit hole.
But this is a huge hole in the idea.
No, but it's not a huge hole. But it's also a lot of conservatives believe that too. You know, I just talked to Douglas Murray the other day. There's Douglas Murray was in Ukraine. He is for the United States. I mean, again, I'm trying not to go down to the Ukraine thing, but you have it's just like Hitchens.
They oppose cryptocurrency too.
It's just like
They're also
Balaji has some great stuff on that for why that is.
They're also very pro-vaccine and love Dr. Fauci.
It's a toxin to woke. But all those things are in the orbit of the ideology. All of them.
In essence of mindless adherence, or
what do you mean?
Like, how is being at war in Ukraine, opposing cryptocurrencies, and being pro big pharmaceutical companies in any way associated? I mean, in fact, I would argue the being in favor of massive multinational corporations is actually, it's paradoxical.
It's kind of like joining the military, assuming this consciousness. Like, if Joe Biden tells you, then you're going to do it. They've accepted. Some people have accepted whatever they say.
Okay, so two things. One, what Ronald Reagan said in his famous debate, "There you go again." You're assuming, and I don't mean that as a slander on you, but you're assuming a kind of rationality that the proponents of the ideology have that they simply do not have.
Oh, I'm quite the opposite. I'm saying they quite literally have no rationality, and there is no coherent ideology at all. What we're looking at is a sewer of refuse that has been mashed together.
Yeah.
And what's happened is, I think regular people who are looking for answers seek experts who are anti-woke, and they find academics who then give them a very academic explanation.
Okay. So let's unpack a sewer that's been crammed together and force-fed, right?
Yeah.
Who is doing the force feeding?
The algorithms.
Okay, again, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm telling you in no uncertain terms, the data is utterly overwhelming for this.
For
the people force feeding them are people who have gone through teacher training programs.
Jack Dorsey.
They're colleges of education. They're university administrators. We released a show. Lyle Asher released a show on my YouTube channel. Why colleges are becoming cults. We know why this is true, and the likelihood that that the same ideology could be both promoted in K through 12 and academic institutions and be promoted by the algorithm at the same time is virtually zero.
So Jack Dorsey, who pushed the free speech wing of the Free Speech Party until 2014,
who also lied before Congress and hasn't been subject to perjury yet.
After the fact.
Go ahead.
The original Twitter, when it was created, was the free speech wing of the Free Speech Party. When he created Twitter, it was in a similar vein to the Ron Paul revolution of freedom, libertarianism, etc. And then there was a shift. Now, it's entirely possible that the explosion of data points we see from LexisNexis in every country on the planet at the exact same time could be because a globalist cabal got together, sat around a table and said, "Implement order wokeness. Our plan has come to fruition." And then they activated the device, which turned every country into a woke, disaster zone. Or it could be that the advent of cellular technology put a phone in everyone's pocket, and then we gave everyone access to communication devices, which amplified our social biases, creating two things. An interesting thing. In countries like Iran and China, they had an inverse conversation. They went completely anti-woke, but still saw the emergence of the same language.
Okay, let me ask you a question then. Taking everything that you just said, what is the disconfirmation criteria for that? Like, what piece of evidence or rationale or reason would you have to hear that would throw that speculation or hypothesis into question?
The LexisNexis data that's been repeated on multiple occasions was incorrect. The data is falsified. The tracking of this terminology and the rise of this language was misinterpreted and in fact has always been around, something like that.
You could see the algorithmic code over the last 15 years if you had like snapshots of the code on a weekly database to see was the algorithm actually inviting this discourse?
I spoke at universities after Occupy Wall Street.
Yeah.
I did not see this.
What year was that?
This is end of 2011. I was being invited to speak at universities.
Okay.
Into 2012 and 2013, and then
I don't think it came to prominence. It's also we have
mentioned. It didn't come to prominence in the universities around.
Well, I'm literally just going to say it's also a geographical phenomenon. So, for example, it's worse.
I was in New York.
It's getting worse on the coast. It's worse in traditionally blue places.
When I was at Occupy Wall Street, wokeness was just starting to permeate into the leftist ideology, and it was confusing to a lot of people. When I went and spoke at universities following Occupy Wall Street, all of the journalists were all of the professors were classically liberal. They were very much in that classically liberal vein where I am right now, and you probably are. And then over the next few years,
I am,
especially with what we saw with Gamergate, we saw the expansion of wokeness, which came from the internet and from young people into the universities. And then what we ended up seeing was a lot of people, so you can see the effect with celebrities, you can see the effect with corporations, slowly start adopting what they think is prominent. And I think they do it.
I'll give you what you're looking for. I'll give you what you're looking for. Read the algorithm. Let me ask you a question. Let's say we had a pie chart, and I'm claiming that it's K through 12, colleges of education, college administrators, infused throughout the curriculum, diversity statements, all of the stuff that seek to both indoctrinate students in an indoctrination mill and perpetuate the ideology. Let's say that you had two of those, and they're not competing, and you're going to fit them in a pie chart. What percentage of that pie chart is algorithm, and what percentage of it is academic institutions?
So what do you mean? You mean like right
that's responsible for the freaking catastrophe?
Responsible, 100% algorithm. 97% perhaps.
100%. Okay,
maybe 97.
Then our disagreement is far more substantive than I thought.
Yeah, so the issue is when I think what's happening is people are seeking answers as to what this ideology is. They're seeing specific examples of it. Many people are looking at the news in a very short-term perspective, and then they're following experts who they believe are academics, academics who they believe are experts on the subject matter, and who likely are in the specifics of, say, critical race theory and critical theory, but they're not actually looking at the hard data of the social phenomenon that's occurred. And the strange thing to me is, like, as I often try to explain, there's hundreds of thousands of ideologies that existed in universities 20 years ago and sort of still do, but they're being pushed out. All of pre-social media, this wokeness did not exist at all. At all.
Go ahead.
And so, simply put, when Anheuser-Busch says, I don't want my content appearing next to these things get removed from social media.
Yeah.
It's an amplification machine that keeps spinning up and recycling these ideologies, which keep changing name. And I think the issue is, I'm on the ground at Occupy Wall Street. I'm on the ground at various protests in LA, all across the country. I'm in Spain, and I'm seeing similar things, and I'm seeing similar behaviors that don't have a core ideological function. And then today I'm seeing pro-vaccine stuff. I'm seeing pro-Fauci stuff. I'm seeing pro-Biden stuff. I'm seeing vote blue no matter who. All we need is your corporeal form.
Chatbot GPT too.
And I'm seeing Ukraine war stuff. None of these things fit your argument. Now, it is true, I think, that universities have become mills of wokeness. But I think within these mills, it makes no sense that there's a rainbow flag next to a Ukraine flag. There is no ideology that brings these things together. What does, however, is a social media algorithm that says adhere to orthodoxy.
Okay.
Or straight up the president telling people to do it. And they're so afraid of Donald Trump that they're just falling in line.
But why are they even afraid of Donald Trump?
Because they're like psychotic think about from this too. Poisoning the food supply, staring at the TV for four hours a day, 8 hours a day.
Where in these theories and these ideologies is Trump derangement syndrome?
So the Trump derangement syndrome, as far as I know, I'm sure someone's written a paper about it, but that's just something that's people have used, that often say conservatives have used. Sam Harris is an interesting thing about Trump derangement syndrome.
Well, he's Trump deranged. The dude Sam Harris is clearly unwilling to reflect upon himself. He's a perfect example of what he's complained about with Islam. He doesn't reflect upon the fact that he's wrong at all. He doesn't look at any of the data. He just hates Donald Trump to the point where he said he believed it was good to cheat to win elections.
All right. So here's my suggestion to you. Why don't you have him on and have a conversation with him?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, anytime.
I'll text him right
So,
after this.
but the point is, Trump derangement syndrome exists. The left refers to it as Trump. What do they call it? Trump anxiety disorder.
And so just to be clear for people listening, by Trump derangement syndrome, you mean
when people become irrationally angry at the thought of Donald Trump, the truth telling around Donald Trump, or anything he does.
But I would also,
for example, when they said the terrorist was an austere scholar, either anything he does is framed negatively, and any defense of him in any factual stance, like, hey, you know, Trump, when he threw the fish with Shinzo Abe into the Koi pond, Shinzo Abe actually did it first. They say, you're a Trump supporter. They get irrationally angry. Sam Harris being a good example. He says that Sam Harris believes subverting elections is a good thing because Trump is that bad. Sam Harris actually said that if there was legitimate evidence of Hunter Biden sexually abusing children, it would not be as bad as Donald Trump running a fraud university.
I heard that.
That is
trigonometry.
Trump. Now, where in leftist ideology does that exist? It doesn't. What does is that Sam Harris is beholden to liberal social orthodoxy crafted by algorithms, and he doesn't want to break from it.
I'll tack on part 2 of the definition of Trump derangement syndrome is that when people are obsessively in love with Donald Trump, it's another form of derangement. The cult worship, that kind of thing, blind adherence.
I agree with you, but people don't use the word to mean that. But it does exist.
So there's so much to unpack in this. So when people are accused of Trump derangement syndrome, they will give the response that is a slur that people use who whitewash the fact that and I'm not saying I get it. Hear this, yeah. It's that Donald Trump is an enemy of democracy and he has subverted the democracy and he would not leave office allegedly, and he's a traitor and whatever else happens. So
and my response is it's a cult.
Well, their response is not that this is an irrational hatred of Donald Trump; it's that this is a rational hatred of Donald Trump.
But any objective, and I mean this literally, any objective person knows that it is irrational. When, Donald Trump was impeached. Why? Because he made a phone call to Ukraine asking about Joe Biden withholding congressionally approved aid in exchange for a political favor.
Okay, so I agree with you. I agree that, again, perhaps it's a difference of degree.
Simply put, these people believe that because social media algorithms fed them false narratives and lies. Now, they say that every cell in our body is completely changed within 7 years. That means someone alive today,
I've heard that. I don't know if it's true. But
I'm just making a nonsensical point. But
wives' tale.
The point is, a person's entire being, if they've been following corporate news since 2015, is comprised of life that believes all of these psychotic lies about Donald Trump.
Yeah.
That we have debunked over and over and over again. And I don't think Trump's a saint. I don't think he's the greatest president who's ever lived or anything like that. I think on foreign policy, he's the best I've seen in my lifetime. I can tell you all the things that I didn't like what he's done. I can say that I was wrong when I took his side over Thomas Massie. And then you go and talk to somebody and it's become a trope. Stop making me defend Trump was a trope throughout 2016, 2017, when the media would lie. They accused Donald Trump of being a traitor and having served the Russians as he was president. And there are people who still believe this.
Yeah.
Now that's Trump derangement syndrome.
Yeah. Okay. In that sense, I think it's really important. Your point is really important that, and I think it's really important when we make mistakes that we've had about things in the past that we kind of fess up to them. That's why I fessed up to you about the Hunter Biden laptop and me had fallen for that. So I did buy into a lot of that media narrative that maybe he seems unnaturally close to Russia. Something's going on.
They lied.
Why has
Alpha
he?
Bank lies.
Well, I heard a lot of that. There's a tape. It said, I'm sure you've heard that.
Yeah, Russian ladies of the night.
Yeah, you heard that.
Drinking a lot of beverages.
And this is my point. Social media algorithms were feeding this content to people because it got clicks. So what we saw was...
Yeah, I mean, again, Tim, I'm not disagreeing with you.
Right.
This is a huge problem. I'm not disagreeing with you. I don't know how to get out of it. So, which is why I mentioned the my side bias, which is making it worse.
Yeah.
I think that we get out of it in a few ways. I think people who are aware of the issue should have as many kids as possible. I know everyone points to me and asks me where my kids are, personal issues, but we'll talk, but I'll keep that private. So I think people should have as many kids as possible.
That doesn't mean your kids will think like you.
There's no guarantee, but there's also a combination of factors. One, get out of cities. We see what's going on with Riley Gaines. We see what's going on in Austin with Daniel Perry. The lies the media is pushing on this guy, it's incredible. So Daniel Perry's got
or get off social media altogether, like Luke Yanoff has been saying, or John Haidt, for kids, young girls, liberal girls, yes. young women, white.
Take your kids' phones away.
Take your. Oh no, it's interesting. It's not YouTube. It's strictly social media. It's the problem that Haidt found.
Yeah. Your kids should not be on social media.
So like texting.
They shouldn't have phones. I don't think they should have cell phones.
Well, that's another thing. There's no, again, I'm not familiar with the data. I haven't looked into it, but people who are familiar with the data say it's not watching YouTube, it's not reading books, it's not texting, it's strictly social media.
I will clarify. They have these cell phones that can only make and receive phone calls and texts. Those are totally fine in my opinion.
Yeah.
You know, I thought you guys were saying something interesting about Trump derangement syndrome. You're saying that it's like an irrational fear of this, and you're saying that it's considered a rational fear.
I'm saying that the people accused of Trump derangement syndrome will claim that it's not a syndrome, that it's not irrational, it's rational. I think that's the response.
And I'm trying to look up, what does that even mean? What's rationality? It's something that you can claim based on a reason. What's a reason? Well, something that you think is right.
What's an Ianism?
Like it's so subjective, this stuff.
But I actually think that's a really good point when we're trying to break down why these people think they're rational. They think they have a reason for it. The reason I say that they are Trump deranged is the emotional vigor that comes along with it. You come to me and you tell me that Donald Trump was an evil tyrant. I'll say, why do you think that?
Yeah.
I go to them and I say, I think Donald Trump was the greatest president on foreign policy. They lose their minds.
Yeah. There's something really profound to that, right? Mm-hmm. There's something that people who can't engage, they just get like anthropogenic global warming, right? Like anthropogenic global warming. If you make an argument against it, or if you make no matter what your argument is, there are some people who will say, well, what's your evidence? And there are other people who will lose their minds.
And this is the point I'm making ultimately about the modern left and wokeness, is that climate change, Trump derangement syndrome, and Ukraine, Fauci, none of these things line up with academia, but they are deranged on all of these counts and equally defensible on all of these counts.
What's the best way to figure out if someone should fear a president?
I think looking at history and figuring out how you should fear a president, you look at history, you should probably fear all of them, including Donald Trump.
Amen. Absolutely.
So you don't think that Trump presented, maybe unique is too strong of a word, you don't think that Trump presented an especially dangerous threat to our democracy?
Why do you say our democracy?
Well, I mean the United States as opposed to Canadian democracy.
Yeah, Trump represented probably the best effort we had at a saving grace of the American constitutional republic.
You mean the whole clearing the swamp thing?
Not necessarily. My view of Trump is that he was more like a bull in a china shop, and that the ivory tower has been constructed over the past 100 years, probably since just before 1913.
Okay, let me ask you this question. On a scale from 1 to 10, we should fear Donald Trump how much, and we should fear Biden how much?
Biden, well, it's tough. It's not so much Biden himself, but Biden, for all that's around him, I would put it at an 8 or a 9. And Trump, I'd put it a 6, 5, or a 6.
Okay, so this is really interesting. I want to say something interesting. So every time I've asked you a question, you've given me an answer. Mm. And I know that must sound like, well, of course I've given you an answer because you've asked me a question that I consider it reasonable. Maybe if I asked you a question about your sex life, you wouldn't answer the question. But
maybe he would.
Or maybe he would. I don't know. I wouldn't ask him. So I wouldn't ask him. So it doesn't make a difference. But there is something also, I think it's an element of that Trump derangement syndrome that you mentioned, there's a kind of excitability or a kind of anger in that, or a kind of like when you ask someone a question, they get upset that you ask them the question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or they don't want the questions asked at all. And that, I think, is more of a concern of the byproduct of what's happening to people's consciousness and how they engage each other, right?
Because they go on social media and they are told, this is what you must be, whether it's true or false, this. And I wonder if it's a component of low testosterone or just outside of that argument, agreeableness. Individuals who fear being ostracized because of, humans survive by being in social groups. Yeah. And those who are more willing to take risks to lead if it's the right thing. So leaders versus followers. The people who are more likely to fall into the follower category are like, don't challenge the order. I will not have you get me ostracized. Whereas my view is kind of like, ostracize me, I don't care. I'll do fine on my own. So I don't have that fear that these people probably do. They get angry because their brain understands that what is being told to them is likely true. But if it's true, it means the social order they're using to survive is wrong. Now they're faced with the evolutionary fear of a risk to their lives.
Yeah, so that's the question. How do you help people? In the literature, it's called build a golden bridge. Like, how do you help people walk over who are woke? And I'm thinking, like, now I'm thinking the FBI is going to come for me when I say red pill,
You're
white
done.
pill.
They're coming in. They're busting in the door.
I think it's already too. My social credit score is already terrible. And how do you help people and not create adversarial relationships to say, oh wow, geez, I thought this and maybe
Anheuser-Busch. We need that apology. More than anything right now, we need that apology. We need to say to every single person who is blindly following social orthodoxy, you're on the wrong side of history. Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.